This next definition is going to deal with taking the image and using rotated bricks to control a final facade. And the precedent here is what we're seeing on the left is the Gottenbein Winery, wherein the winery is made up of this screen wall of bricks that display an image based off of the rotation angle and the way the sun hits it and the lighting effect on it. So you can see the more that the brick is rotated, it creates a shadowing underneath there to create kind of a grayscale image. Each of the bricks, or each of the image is made up of several of these panels that are made off-site by a robotic arm, then brought in inside and placed inside of this kind of concrete frame. The way the idea works is that there's kind of a simulation of these spheres, which you can imagine were grapes, being dropped into a larger volume. And the final kind of resting location of these creates the facade for each of the four exterior facades for the building. Each of those panels then is then stacked. I'll put a link in the description below that links you to a YouTube video showing the bricks, talking about the project, and showing the bricks kind of being stacked by that robotic arm within there, so you can watch the final result of it. But for now, let's go ahead and work through our definition to create a similar effect here. We're going to start with our last definition, which is the stack bond, where the bricks were just simply being displaced along the y-axis. But instead what we're going to do is tear this apart a little bit and rotate the brick. So what we want to do is no longer move the bricks, so we really don't need this move component anymore or the associated y unit vector. We do want to start with the bricks being constructed and then rotate them after the fact. So what I did was just simply wired in the brick center points and gave it the existing dimensions, and that just got us back to having this kind of wall of bricks here. Perfect. Now to actually do the rotation, we want to go ahead and use the rotate along a plane. So go to Transform tab, go to Euclidean, and rotate. It's the first rotate. It says rotate an object in a plane. So let's go ahead and drop that in. The geometry you want to rotate is pretty simple. It's going to be our boxes. We're going to skip the angle of rotation and talk about the plane. By default, that plane is set for world XY, which basically means all of the bricks are going to be rotated about the origin point, the 0, 0, 0, and the XY. You'll see what happens is the wall as a whole kind of rotates 90 degrees. The reason is this becomes the center of rotation, so a brick that's the furthest along the X gets rotated a positive 90 degrees to the y-axis basically, and we don't want that to happen. What we want to do is rotate each brick about its own center point. The brick center points can actually be found up above when we made the boxes. These points are the brick center points. If I turn those on, you'll see that those are all the center points of all those boxes. Let's actually relabel this real quick and call it center points. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste that down below. I'm also going to turn off the old center points now that I've copied it. And I'm going to make this a wireless receiver. So go to Wire Display and Hidden and wire that into the P input. So now every brick is going to rotate about its own center point. If I look closely, you'll see that if I select the rotated bricks, every brick has the original brick in red, that's this old box component in red, and the new rotated brick in green, and all those are rotated 90 degrees from the original. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the original bricks, and we only have the rotated ones. Now, we don't really deal with radians much, but you'll see the angle is asking for radians. Let's go ahead and right-click and set that to degrees. So now it's asking for a rotation angle in degrees. This whole remap is going to control our rotation angle. By default, the image sampler is giving us a value between 0 and 1. However, if we simply use that 0 to 1, that's not going to have a whole lot of impact on the rotation angle. It's just not strong enough, it's not great enough, okay? So we can't really use that 0 to 1 value. We want to increase it, so that's where this remap is happening. We're taking the existing values that are between 0 and 1 with a source domain of 0 to 1 because that's what these values fall between. They're between 0 and 1. And the target is our new ideal rotation angle. Here we're labeled as max displacement because of the previous definition. This is actually going to be changed. We're going to change this to our maximum rotation. Okay. And we want to have potentially a maximum rotation of 90 degrees. So let's double click on this component. Let's change the maximum up to 90 degrees, and the minimum will stay at 0 basically. So a positive 90 to negative 90. Double click, and we're actually going to set the value just to 60 degrees for right now. So things that were previously 0 in the brightness remain 0 for the rotation angle. Things that were previously 1 for the brightness or white, now we'll have a maximum rotation of 60, and everything in between there gets evenly distributed. We're going to take those remapped values and run those into our angle, and there you go. So now if we turn off our center points, just so we can see this a little bit easier, you can actually start to see the image showing up based off of that rotation angle. And I can adjust this rotation angle to rotate the maximum more or less. And if you want to invert the image, essentially make all the black ones white and all the white ones black, all you have to do is swap the A and B of our domain. Now all the things that were black or 0 for brightness currently are 0 for rotation. If we want to have those to become the maximum rotation, just swap the A and B inputs of our source domain. Now those that were once 0 for the value now get the maximum rotation angle. Those that were the brightest get the minimum rotation angle. That'll allow you to kind of invert the image itself. It's that simple. We're going to go ahead and just group these last components. Right click and group. And now we've used an image to actually control the rotation angle of the bricks on the facade.